The town of Willow Creek, Oregon, wasn't the kind of place where things changed quickly. The same people lived in the same houses, drank the same coffee, and walked the same dirt paths by the creek. But everything changed the day Mabel Jennings died. She wasn't famous, not on paper, but around here. Mabel was the glue. Her home, the one with a yellow porch on Dandelion Road, had stood for 4 generations. It wasn't just a house, it was the beating heart of the Jennings family. Holidays happened there, arguments happened there, love happened there. And now death? Mabel had 3 children. Will, the eldest, was a dentist in Portland. Always neat, always polite, always slightly uncomfortable around real emotion. He had a big house, a nice wife, and 1,000 unread texts from his siblings. Becca, the middle child, still lived in Willow Creek. She was the caretaker, the one who stayed behind when everyone else moved on. People in town said she had a heart like Mabel's, though Becca never knew if that was meant kindly or not. Then there was Toby, the youngest, the drifter, the dreamer. The one who'd shown up out of nowhere at the funeral wearing a black hoodie and a 3-day beard. They hadn't all been in the same room in 5 years. The will was read a week after Mabel's burial. The 3 of them sat at the oak kitchen table while Mr. Weller, the family lawyer, flipped through a thick file of papers with too many sticky notes. Becca served them cold sweet tea in mismatched glasses. No one drank it. "I'll keep this short," Mr. Weller said. Mabel Jennings left behind her house, the property, and her personal savings, and she wrote this will herself, 4 months ago. He took a breath. "To my children, I love you all. I tried my best. But I know how you are. If I left things equal, you'd fight anyway. So I didn't." Will leaned back in his chair. "I'm leaving the house and the land to one of you. The rest, the savings and bank accounts, will be divided equally." Toby raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess, she picked Will." Mr. Weller held up a hand. "Actually, no. She didn't pick anyone." They all blinked. "Instead," Weller continued, "she left this. You 3 have to decide, together, no lawyers, no courts. If you can't agree within 30 days, the house is sold. The money goes to charity. You get nothing." Becca was the first to speak. "She really did this?" Mr. Weller nodded. "I tried to talk her out of it." Will rubbed his face. "She knew we'd argue. Why would she set this up?" Toby chuckled. "Because she was tired of watching us pretend we're still a family." Becca stared at the tabletop. "She wanted us to fix it ourselves." The conversation didn't go well. Will wanted to sell the house, split the profit, move on with life. Toby said no. "This house means something. She left it for us, not some random couple from Seattle." Becca said she needed time to think. But in truth, her heart already felt heavy with the weight of both sides. They left that day angry, but they'd be back. Because now a countdown had started. And if they couldn't agree, they'd all lose the last piece of their mother. The next morning, Becca stood alone in the front yard, watching the dew burn off the grass. The house was too quiet. It had always been loud when Mom was around, the radio playing old songs, the kettle whistling, her voice humming in the hallway. Now it was just wind and silence. Becca had lived in Willow Creek her whole life. She worked part-time at the flower shop on Main, took care of their mom when her health started slipping, did the grocery runs, paid the bills, cleaned the floors. But in that will, Mabel had left her the same chance as Will and Toby, not more, not less. Just equal. That afternoon, the siblings came back. They sat in the living room, trying not to sit in their mother's favorite chair. Becca had baked a pie. No one touched it. Will arrived in a crisp polo like he'd come straight from a meeting. "I don't see why we're dragging this out," he said. "Sell the house. Split the money, done." Toby kicked off his shoes and flopped onto the couch. "Sell the house? You didn't even like this place." "I liked it fine," Will replied. "I just moved on." "Exactly," Toby muttered. "You left." Will narrowed his eyes. "So what, you want the house? You gonna pay the taxes? Fix the plumbing?" "I'll find a way," Toby said. "Maybe I'll live here, maybe rent it out." Will snorted. "You haven't held a job longer than 6 months." Becca held up a hand. Stop, both of you. They turned to her, surprised. She rarely raised her voice. I've lived here. I've taken care of everything for years. Don't act like this place doesn't matter just because you weren't here. The room went quiet. Toby nodded slowly. Maybe she wanted you to have it. Becca looked away. She didn't say that, Will pointed out. No, Becca said softly. She didn't. Later that evening, Becca found a box in the attic. She hadn't planned to look around, not yet. But something had pulled her up there. Something about the quiet way the house had settled after the argument. The box was small and taped shut. Inside were old photos, newspaper clippings, and letters. Some of them were in envelopes, some were loose. At the bottom, folded neatly, was a page that made her heart stop. It was a draft of the will. A different one. I, Mabel Jennings, leave the house and property to my daughter, Rebecca Jennings, who gave up her life to care for me. It was signed, but not dated. Becca sat on the attic floor for a long time, staring at that one line, so it had been her, at first. She had been the one Mabel wanted to have the house. But something had changed. She didn't tell her brothers that night. Instead, she made tea, cleaned the counters, listened to the ticking of the old wall clock, and wondered what her mother had been thinking when she rewrote that final version. Was it guilt? Fairness? Or a final test? The next morning, Toby came into the kitchen while Becca was slicing apples. Can I show you something? He asked. She nodded, wiping her hands. He led her to the backyard, to the old shed behind the garden. Inside was a dusty canvas bag and a notebook full of sketches. These are my plans, he said, a little nervous. I was thinking if I got the house, I'd turn the shed into a studio. Start an art space, maybe open it to the town. Becca flipped through the pages. They were messy but full of heart. You've been thinking about this, she asked. Since the funeral, he admitted. She smiled. That's actually kind of sweet. I don't want to take it from you, he added quickly. But I don't want to see it sold either. Becca nodded, her mind turning. She hadn't expected Toby to want something so badly. And for once, he wasn't joking around. But Will had plans too. That afternoon, he pulled Becca aside and showed her numbers. Real estate agents, price estimates, tax breakdowns. This property could sell for $600,000, he said. We split that 3 ways. That's enough for you to pay off your debts. Toby can stop couch surfing. I could invest in a new clinic. Becca stared at the paper. Mom said we had to agree, she whispered. I know, Will said. So let's agree. But you're not even trying to understand what this house means? Will sighed. It's just a house, Becca. No, she said. It's not. By the third night, the pie was still untouched. The clock ticked louder. The house felt smaller. And the distance between the siblings began to feel like a canyon. The house was quiet again, but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that comes after people stop pretending to be polite. Becca didn't sleep much that night. She kept thinking about that unsigned draft, the one where Mom clearly wanted her to have the house, the one she never finalized. Was it a mistake? Or did Mom change her mind on purpose? She kept the page hidden inside a cookbook in the kitchen, tucked between a banana bread recipe and a grocery list from years ago. A part of her wanted to burn it. The other part, it wanted to use it. The next morning, Toby found her at the dining table. He had bed hair and sleepy eyes, but something in his face looked serious. I heard Will on the phone last night, he said. Becca looked up. With who? Some realtor from Portland. He's already getting offers. He thinks he can talk us into signing next week. She sighed. He's always like that. Jumps ahead before anyone agrees. Toby leaned on the back of the chair across from her. I don't want to fight back, but he doesn't get it. This place? It's all we have left. He's got a wife, a nice house, a business. Me. I got ... hoodie and a backpack. Becca gave him a weak smile. You've got a big heart. That counts. He sat down. What about you? What do you want? That question stayed in the air. Becca didn't answer right away. She wanted to say it out loud. I want the house. I deserve it. I earned it. But saying it felt selfish. Instead, she asked, "Would you be okay if I did?" Toby blinked. "You mean, if you kept the house?" She nodded. He shrugged. "Honestly? Yeah, I'd be kind of relieved. I don't want to own it. I just wanted to stay with us." That was the first real moment between them in years. Later that day, Will returned from town with a folder full of printed documents.
He didn't even take off his jacket before tossing them on the table. "Here's the offer," he said.
$625,000, all cash, no inspections. Toby raised an eyebrow. "You already listed it?" "No, I just asked around." Becca folded her arms. "You mean you talked to realtors behind our backs?" Will's voice went cold. "I'm trying to solve a problem." "You two are making it harder." Toby stood. "You're not Mom, Will." "No," Will said. "But at least I'm not wasting time on some backyard art shed dream." That hit a nerve. Toby's fists clenched. Becca jumped between them. "Stop, both of you!" She grabbed the folder and slammed it shut. "We still have time. We don't need to rush this." Will narrowed his eyes. "Why are you so against selling?" She looked at him. And for the first time, she almost told the truth. That night, Becca sat alone in the kitchen, flipping through her mother's old recipes. Her eyes landed on the banana bread page, the one hiding the secret draft. She stared at it for a long time. Then she pulled it out. She stared at the line again. "I, Mabel Jennings, leave the house and property to my daughter, Rebecca Jennings." She whispered the words out loud like a spell. The door creaked behind her. She turned fast. Toby stood there, holding a mug of tea. He froze. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said. She quickly folded the paper and tucked it under the book. But not fast enough. Toby had seen it. "What was that?" he asked, walking slowly toward the table. "Nothing," Becca said too quickly. "Beck," she sighed. "It's a draft, an old one, before the final will." Toby sat down. "Why didn't you show us? I didn't know if it mattered." "Of course it matters." Becca's voice cracked. "I didn't want this to be about greed." "It's not," Toby said gently. "It's about truth. That's what Mom wanted, honesty." They sat in silence. Then Becca said, "Do you think Will would care?" Toby smiled sadly. "He'd care more about the house being sold than about fairness." The next day, Will found the paper. He wasn't snooping. Not exactly. But Becca had left the cookbook open on the table while grabbing laundry. He flipped through it and found the folded page. When she came back into the room, he was holding it. "You weren't going to tell me?" he asked. Becca froze. Toby stood nearby watching. Will's voice rose. "So that's it? You were just gonna let us argue while sitting on this?" "It was a draft, Will," Becca snapped. "It wasn't signed. It wasn't in the final will." "But it meant something." "Yes," she said. "It meant that Mom wanted me to have the house. Until she didn't." That hurt her more than she expected. Will's jaw tightened. "So you're saying she changed her mind because of me?" "I don't know," Becca said, nearly shouting now. "I took care of her. I was here every day. I cleaned up after her. I watched her fade, and when she finally passed, all I got was a maybe." The house fell still again. No one spoke. Then Will said quietly, "If you had shown me this earlier, maybe we'd already be done." And he left. Will didn't return that night. His car was gone from the driveway. No note, no text. Toby found Becca in the living room, staring at the window like she could will him to come back. "You think he went to a hotel?" she asked. "Or back to Portland," Toby muttered. "Would he really do that? Just leave the whole thing unfinished?" Toby shrugged. "It's Will. He'd rather run away than admit he's not in control." Becca slumped deeper into the couch. "This isn't how it was supposed to go." "I don't think Mom expected it to go any certain way," he said. "She just hoped we'd try." They sat quietly for a while. Then Becca asked, "Do you think we failed her?" Toby shook his head. "I think she knew we were already broken. This was her way of seeing if we still had pieces worth saving." She rushed downstairs, hoping it was Will. It was. But he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Mr. Weller, the family lawyer, and a woman in a blazer with a clipboard. Becca stepped back, stunned. "What is this?" Will didn't meet her eyes. Mr. Weller looked awkward. Will has asked me to review legal options regarding the disputed draft. What? Becca gasped. You can't be serious. Will said flatly. If you're hiding other versions of the will, I have a right to know what Mom's real intentions were. Becca's voice trembled. It wasn't signed. It wasn't legal. I didn't lie. You hid it, Will snapped. Toby stepped forward. She didn't want this to be about money. Will turned on him. And yet you were okay letting her keep the house without telling me. Becca looked between them. You think this is what Mom wanted? For us to bring in lawyers and fight over scraps of paper? Will's face softened. For a second, he looked just like the little boy in the old photos. Tired, sad, angry without knowing why. I think she wanted fairness, he whispered. Toby replied, Then we should be fair. No more secrets. That afternoon, they sat around the kitchen table again. Mr. Weller left. So did the clipboard lady. Just the three of them and the house and the weight of everything unsaid. Becca laid the draft on the table. This is what I found. I didn't know what to do with it. Will stared at the handwriting. I remember when she started writing her will. She made a pot of coffee, turned off the TV, and sat in that chair for 2 hours. Becca nodded. She told me she rewrote it 3 times. Toby asked, Why do you think she changed her mind? Becca thought for a moment. Maybe she didn't want to choose. Will looked up. Maybe she thought choosing one of us would mean losing the others. They were quiet again. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, but not hostile. Will spoke first. I don't want to sell the house anymore. Becca blinked. What? I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we don't need to fight. Maybe we find a way to keep it. Share it. Toby smirked. All 3 of us? Under one roof? Like a sitcom with deep trauma? Will chuckled, just a little. No, but maybe we keep it in the family, rent it, use it as a family retreat. Fix it up, do something together. Becca's heart twisted. That sounds impossible. But is it? Will asked. Toby leaned back. I'd rather do that than fight in court. Becca whispered, I would too. By sundown they had a plan. Becca would stay at the house. She was already living there. She'd manage the property. Toby would help fix it up, paint the walls, clean out the attic, make a little art studio in the shed. Will would handle the money, set up a small trust to cover taxes, utilities, and repairs. No one would profit, no one would lose. They'd keep it together. Not because the will told them to, but because they chose to. Later that night, Becca stood on the porch, watching the stars blink above the trees. Toby sat in the swing, sipping hot cocoa. You think she'd be proud? She asked. He looked up. I think she'd be surprised. Becca smiled. Yeah, me too. The door creaked behind them. Will stepped outside, hands in his pockets. I never thought I'd say this, he said. But this place feels different now. Becca looked at her brothers, both of them flawed, stubborn, but still here, still trying. She nodded. It feels like home again. Spring arrived slowly in Willow Creek. The snow melted off the hills in quiet streams. Dandelions bloomed in soft yellows across the front yard. Birds returned to the tall oak trees that lined Dandelion Road. And the Jennings house, once filled with silence and ghosts, was now filled with paint cans, laughter, and something no one expected, hope. Toby stood on a ladder, painting the porch railing white. His jeans were splattered, and his nose had a sunburn. But he looked lighter than he had in years. Will carried 2 folding chairs onto the porch. He wore a baseball cap backward, something Becca had never seen in her life, and held a clipboard of receipts and supply orders. Becca came out with lemonade. The 3 of them sat down, watching the wind dance through the trees. You know, Toby said, I used to think the only way to feel free was to leave this town. And now? Will asked. Now I think freedom's just being somewhere that feels like yours. Becca smiled. Welcome to the club. They finished the porch that week. Becca cleaned out their mother's room and turned it into a reading nook. She kept the floral wallpaper, couldn't bring herself to paint over it just yet. Will converted the garage into a small guest room.
He said it was for future family visits, but everyone knew it was for him.
A quiet escape when Portland got too loud. Toby's art studio was the last to come together. He hung string lights across the beams in the old shed, painted the walls pale blue, filled the space with canvases, second-hand shelves, and dozens of sketchbooks. He called it the nest. One day, Becca found an old box in the back of the closet. It held little things, a hairbrush, a scarf, a faded envelope. Inside the envelope was a note from Mabel. If you're reading this, it means you've stayed. Good. This house always needed someone with heart. I know I left you all with a mess. But you were my 3 best decisions, even when I didn't say it enough. Don't worry about what I wrote in those papers. You'll know what to do. You always did. Love. Mom. Becca cried softly on the bedroom floor, the note in her lap. Not because she was sad. Because she was seen. They held a small gathering the next month. Neighbors brought pie. Old friends brought folding chairs and stories about Mabel, the time she ran the church bake sale, the time she yelled at the mayor over potholes, the time she brought soup to a stranger's door. Will gave a little speech, stumbling over his words but smiling through it. Toby played guitar in the background. Becca set out framed photos along the porch railing, her, Toby, and Will as kids. And one of their mom, arms crossed, smiling in that firm, proud way only Mabel had. As the sun went down and the yard emptied, the 3 of them sat on the porch again, feet up, lemonade in hand. Quiet but not empty, Becca turned to her brothers. You know what the craziest part is? What? Toby asked. We didn't just save the house. We saved us. Will nodded slowly. Mom left us the house, he said. But we rebuilt the family. Toby raised his glass. To the house on Dandelion Road, he said. Becca clinked hers. To second chances. Will smiled. To Mom. They sat together as the stars came out, and the old house stood strong behind them, full of light, laughter, and love again. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone you care about. Tell us in the comments, who do you think deserved the house the most? Or have you ever experienced a family moment like this? Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you don't miss our next powerful drama. This was The House on Dandelion Road, a story about love, loss, and finding your way back home. See you in the next story.